Good afternoon. How are you? Well, because of the ice and snow, I'm taking it a little carefully. I was out in the snow feeding the animals, but that doesn't really allow for me to walk and feed, shall we say. But I do have several thoughts I'd like to share with you as we go along with these nominees. The departments of government, which are the three departments, the judiciary, executive, and legislative, are supposed to be to serve us. Our Constitution says, we the people. And anything done pursuant to that authority is supposed to protect us. Okay. So what if the departments instead are turned against us as a dictator would do? The Department of Justice is to get even and have retribution about anybody who ever criticized myself, felon Trump. Well, that's not what the department's about. And what are we doing with the Defense Department? Is the Defense Department there to wage war and be on the wrong side of an issue? For example, it was no less than the nominee to be the head of our Defense Department said that he'd be happy if every Hamas participant was dead. And today we have an initiative, supposedly cooperated by Trump, that appears to say something different. We wait and see if these things do go forward. By the way, I just noticed that I look like a floating head with my hands out here, so I apologize if this is eerie for you. Kind of a kick, though. I don't know if it's a new look that I should have. So here we have this situation in which the department should serve us, but they can be turned against us. What's a good example? Well, today we had Bondi, who's a former AG in Florida, who was very helpful to the Republicans in the past, including Trump personally. And she's there, and her view of the Justice Department, approved by Trump, because we've heard him say it, is retribution, get even, investigate the investigators. Isn't that something? And we had Tim Kaine yesterday represent we the people well by asking serious questions about he who would be our defense secretary. And today we had Schiff, a senator from California, I think filling the same role. And they're perfect. They're both very responsible people with great ability, and they do their homework. And Schiff was himself a prosecutor, and you know him from the January 6th committee, as well as from the impeachments. So we had a very well reasoned, talented person say to Bondi, she who would be our Attorney General, are you aware of any investigation of Special Counsel Jack Smith? Well, I don't really have to know. I don't have to answer. And she said, well, what do you say about it? And what she said publicly was that these people would be hiding under rocks, and she was going to bring them out. They were no longer hide in the shadows. Now, she didn't say that to the Senate today, but that's what she said before. Just like the nominee to be our defense secretary, he said other things about women and his misconduct and how and who should serve in battle zones and so forth. Then, moving today again, Bondi, she who would be the head of the Department of Justice, or the Just Us Department, she was asked again by Schiff, is there any factual predicate for investigating Cheney for her participation in January 6th committee or anything else? Well, I just don't want to talk about. And then, you know how she answered it? This is the thing. Well, let me tell you about this thing over here or that thing over there. She says to Schiff, well, you know, there's a lot of crime in California, meaning you should spend your time on that instead of asking me to be ethical and to be forthright about what I'm going to do with the Justice Department. So we have a sample of two agencies, two cabinet members in the executive branch that are talking about how they would go forward really against us and against our views. One might wage war just because that's what Trump wants. What is he going to say to Canada or Mexico or Greenland? What is he going to say in Europe? Who is he not going to support? Is he going to go against an ally? And then in the Justice Department, we're going to get even. We're going to use the tools to go after you and to do things to you, and however unjustified that may be. So the closest that Bondi, who is the nominee to be Attorney General, came was she said, I'd have to see the evidence. You know, this is the fraud in America right now by those who would suggest you can defend felon Trump. when so much of it was visible and admitted and done and cataloged and made available to us on film and in print, and still people are scratching their heads. What does this all mean? And what it all means is that our nation is in danger of losing its way or having it taken away. Now, there was a senator at her hearing today, at Bondi's hearing for the AG, Katie Britt, and she compared Bondi's appointment to Kennedy's appointment of RFK. Now there's a stretch for you. Now, the interesting thing is Bobby Kennedy went after crime, not after the lawyers in the Department of Justice who prosecuted crime. And if you're like I am, an obsessive about some of these things, RFK prosecuted Jimmy Hoffa when that was an impolitic thing to do for a Dem to turn against labor. But Jimmy Hoffa defied the standards of, there's so much written about it. And I guess the best way to say it for a mixed audience, historically speaking, is this is a man who used his position of power against labor and did it so corruptly that he was ultimately prosecuted for it. When has Bondi done anything like that? Who is she prosecuted? What is she going to be in terms of heading the Justice Department? Is she going to look at Trump? No. It's going to be the Felon Trump Protective Society. It's going to be the Felon Trump, let's tear up any case that ever even impugns, rightly or wrongly, Mr. Trump. This is going to be the lawyer for Trump, not the lawyer for the people. And that's a significant and important difference. Now, there is some hope today of a ceasefire and the return of hostages. These celebrations always drive me crazy in this sense. 15 months of death and suffering and so on, with statements by Netanyahu that he still had to keep attacking and go after Hamas when he was killing women and children and so forth. Now, I'm not just taking him out. Hamas went and did the same kind of war crimes, invading peaceful people who were killed and who became hostages themselves. And are we going to do anything about it? Is this going to be the planet's history now, even though there have been charges leveled both against Netanyahu and the leaders of Hamas? So this is the problem. For every advance, we have some disadvantage. Now, Trump, interestingly, Felon Trump, he supposedly played some role making this happen. I don't know. So what are we dealing with? I think what we're dealing with now is we have to resist in every way possible the departments of oppression, which is the theme. To destroy the original function of government, to have a new one, and instead of we the people being represented and having our will executed through the departments, it is going to be executed against us. We are becoming subjects, not citizens. We are becoming compromised, not free. And that is not acceptable. What we want is a system in which the departments do their job. Now, there's always been a problem about people coming into these departments who were asked to monitor and police the very agencies that they came from, and then they circle back into it. So these agencies often do well in the early days, and then gradually they're taken apart because these people out there with their funds and their interest and their power, they don't exist for a season. They exist for decades. They work at the problem all the time. And you and I are not doing that. We're living with our families, we're earning a living, we're doing community work, we're raising children, we're doing all sorts of things. The kind of constructive things that they could be helping us do, instead they put us at risk. They put the environment at risk, they put the individual rights of women at risk, they do all these things wrong. The other day, forgive me if I mentioned it before, but there's a science writer who's very interesting talking about what better way to limit the effect of women on society than to force more to have children. Takes them out of the environment of being a leader and a participant. And so we take them away. And he had noted from his studies, Isaac Asimov, if I got that right. He had learned through his studies and the statistics he looked at, and this was years ago, that when birth rates go up, women's power goes down. Now, such seemingly simple statistics are in fact followed as a matter of policy, and we should keep that in mind. I also think there's great misogyny, and we had that yesterday with the defense secretary. So that's what I have today, and tomorrow maybe I'll be out on a road that won't be as slippery or treacherous and so forth. It makes me very uncomfortable to think I shouldn't go out there charging around. But as I point out to some people when I've been considering getting another horse, that I don't bounce as high as I used to. So I'm going to be more defensive because I want to be active and to do the things that I want to do. So thanks for joining me. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow, and hopefully from the trail. Bye-bye.